Good afternoon. Welcome. Apologies for our 4 minutes delay. This will never happen again in this conference. No, I don't know. Welcome to our conference, Reimagining Europe from the Peripheries, put together by my wonderful colleagues, Cory Garibaldi, Francisco Robles, and Perrin Gurel. This conference is the brainchild of these wonderful colleagues who have secured the software, so to speak. The logistic support of this conference, the hardware, one might say, has been provided by the Nanovic Institute for European Studies. Welcome to Reimagining Europe from the Peripheries. My name is Clemens Sedmak, and I serve as director of the Nanovic Institute. Please allow me to say a few words about the background. I have 6 pages, so this will take about 12 minutes. No. The Nanovic Institute has defined a special focus in its current strategic plan, namely the issue of peripheries. We are interested in exploring the role of the concepts and phenomena of peripheries and peripheralization in European studies and Europe. What does it mean to work with centers and the challenge of decentering the center? Margins and borderlands, in-between spaces and marginalized peoples, languages, cultures, traditions. I remember an encounter in Armenia a year ago. I spent spring break in Armenia, as one does, and a colleague I met looked at me and said, "You know, this is Europe." I looked around, maybe having a glimpse of some aspects of the mountainous Caucasus region between Europe and Asia, and said to myself in an attempt to convince my provincial Austrian self, this is Europe. How do we imagine Europe? How could we imagine Europe? How should we reimagine Europe? It takes brilliant minds to negotiate these questions. The Nanovic Institute for European Studies has a wonderful community of faculty fellows. In fact, if the institute can be compared to a country, our fellows are like the citizens who bring life to the land. That is why we issued a call for proposals. Maybe we came across a little desperate. Dear wonderful fellows, do you have any ideas for an academic conference on our strategic focus on peripheries? The conference can approach the topic from any angle. We just want it to be relevant for the discourse on peripheries. Cory, Francisco, and Perrin are both brilliant and compassionate, and they submitted a compelling proposal, and here we are. Reimagining Europe from its peripheries is an invitation to examine the political and structural structuring of European belonging from the perspective of its ever-shifting, often precarious peripheries. The multidisciplinary conference will consider how various forms of sectarian conflict, nationalism, and imperialism have shaped and reshaped who is isolated, integrated, and excluded from Europe as conceptions of the European continent and its peripheries have changed over time and space. Our presenters will discuss the role of the environment and geography in guiding refugees and mass migration into Europe. They will analyze the complex legacies of empire and white settler colonialism, demonstrating how these histories interrelate with popular, dehumanizing misuses of the past. Several presentations will illuminate the broader literary and cultural dimensions of these topics and themes by analyzing how portrayals of racial and other forms of difference have influenced the tenets of Europeanization in the modern era. The invitation of this conference is an invitation to reimagine and rethink, partly unlearn and relearn European studies and the ways we conceive of Europe. I already want to thank Cory, Francisco, and Perrin for putting together this intellectual and social feast. I want to thank my wonderful colleagues at the Nanovic Institute for their tireless work to make this event happen, especially our events team and our communications team, Mel Webb, Grania McEvoy, Jen Lektansky, Grant Osborne. We have a terrific new communication director who joined us on April 12th, namely Keith Sayer. Admittedly, he hasn't contributed much to this conference, but he will be the driving force in the follow-up work. I want to mention one colleague in particular, Becca Prince. She's the heart and soul of this event and so many of our events. I have no idea how Becca does it. She's kind, she's gracious, she's effective and efficient. If I had Becca's job, I would constantly scream and yell, complain and lament the fact that God not only created substances, but also events. So a round of applause for Becca because she made this possible. Right here in the back. This afternoon, or is this evening, I always think it sounds more optimistic to say this afternoon at 5:39. So this afternoon, we will celebrate the topic with an opening keynote delivered by an impressive guest of honor, Zahia Rahmani. Zahia is so impressive that she will be introduced by the wonderful Professor Alison Rice, Nanovic Faculty Fellow, Chair of the Romance Languages and Cultures Department, Professor of French and Francophone Studies, Global Citizen, Nanovic Institute Faculty Committee Member, Role Model, Friend, Brilliant Intellectual, and Ambassador of Sunshine and Cheer. Thank you, Alison, for introducing our guest of honor. Take over.
Hello, thank you. It is a great honor to introduce Zahia Rahmani to you today. Zahia is someone I met a number of years ago and have admired ever since. She is an art historian and writer of fiction, memoir, and cultural criticism. She is the director of the Art, History, and Globalization Research Program at the National Institute for Art History in Paris, an interdisciplinary program that focuses on contemporary artistic practices in a globalized world. She is also the author of a literary trilogy devoted to contemporary figures of the banished, Mots, which was published in 2003, Musulman Roman, Muslim, a novel, published 2 years later in 2005, and France, Récit d'une enfance, published in 2006, which received the Albertine Book Prize in 2020 for its English rendition, France's Story of a Childhood. That is a very special award that is given by the French Embassy in the United States of America for a book that achieves high recognition here in translation. The French Ministry of Culture named her Chevalier of Arts and Letters. She is a member of the College of Diversity. She is the founder and director of INAS, or the National Institute for Art History in Paris's interactive bibliographic database. She is a member of the Global Visual Cultures Academic Committee as well, and she has created the graduate research program at the École Nationale des Beaux-Arts, which she directed from 1999 to 2002. Her multi-year international research project that took place in Paris and Marseille, notably, culminated in Made in Algeria, Genealogy of a Territory, a book and exhibition of colonial cartography, high and popular visual culture, and contemporary art. And it was shown at the Museum of European and Mediterranean Civilizations located in Marseille. Her work on territorial capture and its representations has been therefore very important, but there is some research that's ongoing that is equally significant. One is titled Seismography of Struggles Toward a Global History of Critical and Cultural Journals, which is a census of 1,000 journals produced by non-Western communities and is being shown right now, I believe, at Carnegie Mellon in the Art Institute there, the Art Museum. This research has led to the production of audiovisual work, widely conceived and widely received internationally, as well as the publication of 2 books. A current project is titled Lost Paradise, Colonization of Landscapes, Destruction of Eco-anthroposystems. This semester, Zahia Rahmani is working on that and other things at NYU, where she is a professor in the Gallatin Global Faculty in Residence program. And we are deeply fortunate to have her with us today to deliver the first keynote address of the conference titled Building Europe Elsewhere, Restoring the World. Please join me in welcoming Zahia Rahmani to the Nanovic Institute of European Studies at the University of Notre Dame.
Thanks. Thanks, Alison. No, thanks. Sorry, but I give a specific lecture, but not in English. I have a translator there. It's You know, in Europe, now how is it? Grande-Bretagne, the British, is not in the Union European today. We have another language, German, French. And I'm born in north of Africa. And my first language was the Berber. I said some word in Berber. Please, because she stayed with me and she gave a specific translation of my lecture. Tu es d'accord?
Je suis d'accord. Totally in agreement.
Je vous remercie infiniment pour votre accueil et votre présentation. Et je remercie les organisateurs de ces journées, le Nanovic Institute, et je te remercie, Alison, de m'avoir invité.
So I'd like to thank you a great deal, infinitely, for your welcome and for this opportunity. I am grateful to the organizers, to the Nanovic Institute, and happy to be here.
C'est vrai qu'aux États-Unis, tout le monde parle anglais. Je suis très honorée d'être le keynote speaker de cette remarquable initiative autour de l'identité européenne et de ses contours, les contours européens d'aujourd'hui et les nouveaux contours possibles de ce que pourrait être l'Europe.
I'm deeply honored to be the keynote speaker of this remarkable initiative, one of the keynote speakers, of course, this remarkable initiative focused on the identity of Europe and its contours, the contours as they are shaping themselves today, and the new contours that will be possible in what could be Europe.
Je sais qu'en parlant français, je suis déjà frappée de négativité. Pour ceux qui comprennent. But in English, I think. Il y a un profond malentendu aujourd'hui entre ce que la France pratique comme politique envers les descendants de migrants, comme loi et pratique, et le discours qui est entretenu par la classe politique française envers certaines catégories d'étrangers qu'elle nomme migrants. Tout le monde n'est pas migrant.
In a sense, since I'm speaking French, I'm already hit with negativity. There is a deep misunderstanding today between what France practices as its politics toward those who descend from migrants and immigrants, and the discourse that is kept up by the political class in France towards certain categories of foreigners that they do call migrant.
À cela s'ajoute le fait que je risque de décevoir certains, et cela en raison de mon europhilie. Je suis europhile. L'Europe dont je vais parler est celle dont vous allez parler demain en lieu dans lequel je vis, est un lieu dans lequel je vis. Je ne sais pas s'il y a beaucoup d'Européens ici. Yeah? No?
How many Europeans are here today?
Ah, OK. Vous vivez en Europe. The origin European or you live in Europe? Because I live in Europe. C'est la différence. OK? Et un territoire dans lequel ma famille vit depuis 1967.
So to these facts that we've just looked at, I'm also running the risk of maybe disappointing some. And that is because I am a Europhile. The Europe I want to talk about, I will talk about, is the place where I live. It is a territory in which my family has lived since 1967.
Je vis en Europe, dans un État de l'Europe, la France. Et je suis très attachée à l'ambition politique de ce continent.
I live in Europe, in one of the European countries called France, and I am very attached to the political ambition of this continent.
Ce projet, il est loin d'être abouti, mais cela pourrait être une ambition majeure, comme le notait Jacques Derrida dans son livre L'autre cap.
This project has yet to be fulfilled and realized, but it could be a major goal, an ambition, as Jacques Derrida noted in his work L'autre cap.
Partant d'un texte de Paul Valéry, Il appelait de ses vœux une ambition européenne à l'échelle mondiale.
He took as his starting point a text by Paul Valéry, and he called for an ambitious a project in Europe that would have a worldwide scale, a global scale.
Une communauté d'États mondialisée en somme.
A community of states that would be worldwide, in short.
La fin des frontières et la mobilité pour tous à l'intérieur de ce vaste réseau d'États.
The end of borders and movement, mobility for all within this vast network of states.
Derrida a écrit à ce sujet « Je suis européen, je suis sans doute un intellectuel européen, mais je ne suis pas un Européen à part entière. »
Derrida wrote on this topic, I am European. I am without a doubt a European intellectual, but I am not completely European.
Cela fera donc plus d'un demi-siècle que ma famille vit en Europe.
So now it's been more than half a century that my family has lived in Europe.
Ma famille est-elle pour autant européenne?
Is my family therefore European?
Suis-je européenne?
Am I European?
Nous en dévoilerons les possibilités, mais aussi les impasses.
We will look at the possibilities, but also the things that keep that from happening.
Une chose qui n'est pas dans le texte,
Something that's not in the text.
je n'ai pas dit « suis-je française ?»
I didn't say, am I French?
mais ma langue d'éducation scolaire est le français.
But my language of scholastic education is French.
Et j'aime beaucoup cette langue.
And I love this language.
Je m'excuse de devoir vous quitter demain après-midi.
I'm sorry to have to leave tomorrow afternoon.
J'ai 3 jeunes adolescentes qui m'attendent à New York.
I have 3 young teenagers who are waiting for me in New York.
Elles sont arrivées de France.
They have just arrived from France.
Je fais part de cet aspect privé car ces jeunes filles comptent beaucoup pour moi.
I'm letting you know this private aspect of my life because these young women are very important to me.
Ce sont les filles de mes frères.
They are the daughters of my brothers, sorry.
Elles sont toutes les 3 issues de parents dont on peut dire qu'ils ont été migrants.
All 3 of them come from parents who could be called migrants.
Ma famille compte beaucoup de jeunes gens.
There are many young people in my family.
Je n'ai pas d'enfants, mais j'ai 17 neveux et nièces.
I don't have children, but I have 17 nephews and nieces.
Ils sont tous nés sur le territoire français, alors que leurs parents, sauf dans le cas des couples mixtes, sont tous nés en Algérie.
They were all born on French territory in France, but their parents, except in the case of mixed couples, were all born in Algeria.
Je suis historienne d'art de formation et écrivain socialement. Je suis née en Algérie en 1962. J'ai dit que ma famille est arrivée en France en 1967.
So my training is as an art historian, and socially I'm a writer. I was born in Algeria in 1962, and as I already noted, my family came to France in 1967.
Étonnamment, cette famille a fait le choix judicieux et rare pour l'époque de vivre dans la campagne française et non dans une ville.
Surprisingly, my family chose, and this turned out to be judicious, also rare for the time, to live in the French countryside.
Après un court séjour dans une ville de Picardie, région située au nord de Paris, ma famille, mes parents, feront le choix de nous emmener vivre en 1973 à la campagne et notre maison familiale est depuis cette date au même endroit.
After a short stay in the town of Picardie, or in a town in Picardie, this region which is situated in the north of to the north of Paris, my family and my parents specifically made the choice to take us to the countryside in 1973. And our family home has been there ever since, in the same spot.
And I have also buy another house not so far.
Okay.
With my boyfriend. It's my country, my landscape, but for me, I said that the problem is not the state. I said something about the boundaries. J'ai fait des études d'histoire de l'art par miracle. Je fais ici une digression pour dire combien la pratique d'un savoir a forte connotation culturelle, parce que l'histoire de l'art relève à la fois de la pensée savante et de la culture dite haute. Ces études ont été pour moi salvateurs.
It was really a miracle that I studied art history. I am going through a digression here to emphasize how much knowing such a strong cultural element that art history is, comes from knowledgeable thought of what we call high culture, and this was really a saving grace for me.
Avec l'histoire de l'art, j'ai appris le contre-champ, ou disons, j'ai appris le contre-champ avec cette discipline. How you translate contre-champ?
Comment tu dis?
How you translate? It's difficult, you know. They come from the movie studies, contre-champ. You know, the other point of view, you know. For the filmmaker, the contre-champ, it's when you see the point of view. Okay.
Shot, reverse shot.
You can, yeah.
Reverse shot?
On essaye, it's very difficult to find this. That's why now
And
you use the
counterpoint.
French term, contre-champ. A counterpoint is not good because it's for the music, you know. C'est pour la musique. Counterpoint. Ah, ok. J'ai appris le contre-champ avec cette discipline, avec l'histoire de l'art. J'ai compris pourquoi et comment l'Europe avait participé de l'écriture de l'histoire des autres par une pratique que, je dois le citer, Edward Said a bien distingué par la formule qui accompagne son maître-livre, l'orientalisme. C'est une discipline, l'histoire de l'art, qui est consacrée à une construction de représentation de l'autre, à ce moment-là. Disons, comme dirait Edward Said, l'orientalisme, ce que l'Europe a construit avec ce savoir, c'est une construction de représentation de l'autre. Dire l'autre, c'est le tenir, mais c'est aussi le maintenir dans une définition, c'est le figer, le fixer, avec toute la violence de ce que cela présuppose.
So, in learning the other point of view that is the contre-champ in the discipline of art history, I understood how and why Europe had participated in the writing of history, the history and the story of others, through a practice that Edward Said had well distinguished with his formula, which accompanied his master work, l'orientalisme, Orientalism, a construction of the representation of the other. To say the other is to uphold the other, to hold up the other, but it is also to keep the other in a definition. It is to hold them there. It is to fix them in a position with all of the violence that that can entail.
Concerning the indexation, l'Europe a été un maître en la matière.
On ajoute.
Concerning the indexation. L'Europe, tu peux le dire.
Donc, ça c'est pour ajouter là, pardon.
Non, j'ai juste dit concernant l'indexation.
With respect to annexation, Europe was the master at this.
C'est dans son territoire et par lui que le monde a été indexé.
It's in its territory and through it that the world was indexed.
Le monde, ses objets, ses plantes, ses pierres, et ainsi que les hommes.
The world, its objects, its plants, its rocks, and also its people.
Et c'est en son territoire, le territoire de l'Europe, et de son corollaire, l'Occident, que l'indexation du monde vit encore.
And it's in its territory, the territory of Europe, and its corollary, the Western world, that indexation of the world still goes on.
Cette indexation est dans nos réserves, dans nos bibliothèques.
This indexation is in our reserves, it is in our libraries.
De cet héritage, de cette indexation, nous ne sommes pas sortis.
And this is the inheritance that we have not yet emerged from.
J'ai fait mon premier mémoire de maîtrise en histoire de l'art sur l'artiste américain Robert Rauschenberg.
I did my first degree, a master's degree in art history on the American artist Robert Rauschenberg.
J'ai, lors de la rédaction de mon mémoire, fait un long séjour à New York.
And as I was writing that thesis, I took a long stay in New York.
À ce moment-là, j'ai appris ce que pouvaient être les présupposés culturels européens.
And that's when I learned what presuppositions were present in European culture.
Personne ne s'attendait, à l'université, dans les années 80, à un tel déplacement. Naître en Algérie et écrire sur Rauschenberg.
Nobody had expected someone like me in the 80s to be doing this work, born in Algeria, and then writing on Rauschenberg.
Un professeur avait pourtant tenté de me faire travailler sur l'Afrique du Nord.
A professor had nonetheless tried to get me to work on North Africa.
J'ai refusé, et cela pour des raisons esthétiques.
I refused, and it was for aesthetic reasons.
J'aimais l'œuvre de Rauschenberg.
I loved the work of Rauschenberg.
J'entends parler de l'Europe autrement que de ses frontières, mais aussi de son modèle juridique et culturel, et la manière dont celui-ci pourrait se performer et, pourquoi pas, se constituer avec d'autres États comme un modèle politique collectif qui pourrait s'élargir à d'autres encore, ou bien s'exercer comme un modèle ailleurs. Sorry.
I hear talk of Europe in different terms than its borders, according to its juridical model, cultural model, and the manner in which it can be performed, and why not constituted through other states, like a collective political model that could become larger, or other models yet are envisageable, or it could be even something else.
C'est, et c'était, encore le souhait de Paul Kagame, président encore actuel du Rwanda. Pardon si ce nom heurte, mais il a ce projet de penser la communauté des États d'Afrique.
This was the wish, thinking of Europe maybe elsewhere, the wish of Paul Kagame, president now, still, of Rwanda. And please forgive me if this name is a bit shocking. He has proposed a model of a community of states, of African states, that would be constructed together.
Proposer un modèle de communauté d'États africains qui aurait à construire ensemble les modalités du devenir commun de la libre circulation des hommes dans ce continent.
So this would be constructed according to modalities of becoming together and becoming common that would allow for the free movement of people.
Il ne cesse de vouloir œuvrer à cela.
He keeps wanting to work at this.
Et peu d'États européens soutiennent cette initiative.
And very few European states are in support of this initiative.
À vous d'en comprendre les multiples raisons.
Up to you to understand the many reasons.
Mais je dois rappeler que depuis maintenant 40 ans, la question migratoire est une question politique majeure en Europe.
But I must bring up again that for 40 years now, the migratory question is a major political question in Europe.
Disons même qu'en Europe, l'incompétence d'un certain nombre d'hommes et femmes politiques œuvrent à ce seul argument: l'immigré est le responsable de tous les maux de l'Europe.
We must even say that in Europe, the incompetence of a certain number of men and women who are in politics, they work together at this one argument. The immigrant is the person responsible for all of the ills of Europe.
I can propose one digression.
Yes.
Tu traduis?
D'accord.
Il faudrait que tous les hommes politiques aient d'abord un métier avant de faire de la politique.
It would be necessary for every person who goes into politics to have a job, a profession, before they go into politics.
Yes. You know? The migrant now is the subject. Mais revenons au projet de Kagame, les États-Unis d'Afrique. Cette intention politique d'un dirigeant africain est loin d'être une chimère.
But let's come back to this project of Paul Kagame, the United States of Africa. This political ideal, intention of an African leader is not just a chimera.
Un ministre sur un overt, OK? Quand vous vous rendez à la Biennale de Dakar au Sénégal ou au Dakar Art Summit au Bangladesh, vous faites l'expérience rare d'un mouvement transfrontalier qui n'est pas étranger au modèle européen.
When you attend the biennial art event in Senegal or the Dhaka Art Summit in Bangladesh, you are experiencing that rare moment of transfrontalier,
Yeah.
a movement that goes across borders, that is transnational, and that is not foreign to the European model.
Toute la jeunesse africaine qui a un désir d'art, c'est-à-dire un désir sensible, même sans moyens, cette jeunesse converge vers Dakar pendant plusieurs mois.
All African youth who desire to work in art and who have a sensitive bit to them, even if they don't have the means, they somehow make it to Dakar and spend weeks there.
And I have this experience since 20 years. You know? À Dhaka, au Bangladesh, l'événement est stupéfiant.
In Bangladesh, the event is absolutely stupefying.
Ce rassemblement, qui a lieu tous les 2 ans, comme à Dakar, fait se rejoindre durant 2 semaines la jeunesse du monde entier.
This gathering in Bangladesh that takes place every 2 years, like in Dakar, Senegal, brings together for 2 weeks the youth of the entire world.
Yes. Cette jeunesse, elle arrive de tous les continents.
They come from every continent.
Là, au Bangladesh, on ne lui a pas fermé la porte.
And in Bangladesh, they did not close the doors to them.
On ne lui a pas fermé la porte. Et là, on peut voir, deviner ce que pourrait être le futur de l'Europe.
And with that opening of that door, we can glimpse what could be the future of Europe.
Un futur qui ne peut s'écrire que dans une dynamique mondiale, comme les grandes manifestations internationales l'ont anticipé.
This is a future that can only be written in a dynamic worldwide mode, like great manifestations, great demonstrations on an international scale have foreseen.
Yes, because you use regularly biennale, summit, but this term, you know, you use this term, the same term, but when you have a biennale in Venezia, it's not the same in Africa. You use the same term, but the manifestation is totally different. It's the same in the Bangladesh. The Dakar Summit, it's an amazing moment. Sorry, yes. Ils sont des milliers, un futur qui ne peut s'écrire comme les grandes... Ils sont des milliers à se retrouver durant des jours, et ce n'est pas une utopie.
They are thousands who get together for days, and it's not a utopia.
Pour eux, ce monde est déjà là.
For them, this world is already there.
Et peut-être qu'il est à ce stade nécessaire de dire que les nouvelles technologies, l'Internet, qui anticipe en partie de ce monde, est l'un des outils essentiels de la construction de cette réalité.
And maybe we should say that new technologies, the internet, have given part to this world, served as one of the really essential tools to the construction of this reality.
Étonnamment, c'est la jeunesse européenne qui est absente de ces grandes réunions.
Surprisingly, it is European youth who are missing from these great get-togethers.
Mais plus encore, l'Occident ne relaie pas ces mouvements de masse.
And what's even more striking is that the West is not a part of these mass movements.
Qui est un agir politique.
And it's a political action.
Il est presque impossible de lire en Europe une ligne sur le Dakar Art Summit.
It's almost impossible to read in Europe a single line about the Dhaka Art Summit.
C'est des milliers de gens. J'ai jamais vu ça. Je te laisse le dire, parce que c'est pas mon texte.
It's thousands of people, and she's never seen anything like it.
Des communautés sud-américaines discutent de l'avenir avec des figures de la communauté aborigène d'Australie.
South American communities discuss the future with figures from the Aboriginal community of Australia.
Des poètes et écrivains du Sénégal échangent avec des personnalités venues de Colombie.
Poets and writers from Senegal exchange with personalities who have come from Colombia.
Et ensemble, ils se découvrent des pratiques alimentaires et artistiques communes entre la Colombie et le Sénégal.
And together they discover eating habits, artistic habits that they have in common.
Pour moi, c'est dans ces endroits que se réinvente l'Europe en ce moment.
And for me, it's in these places that Europe is reinventing itself at this time.
Vue de l'extérieur, l'Europe s'impose au monde comme un espace rare et unique de stabilité démocratique, de mobilité humaine, d'éducation à grande échelle, de prospérité et de protection à la fois.
Seen from outside, Europe imposes itself on the world as a space that is rare and unique, filled with democratic stability, with human mobility, with education on a wide scale, with prosperity and protection at once.
Ces piliers-là, même s'ils semblent encore participer de ce qui distingue fondamentalement le modèle politique de la construction européenne, sont aujourd'hui plus que menacés.
These pillars, even if they seem to still participate in what fundamentally distinguishes the political model of the Europe construct, are nonetheless today more than threatened.
On peut dire que ce qui le menace, disons, deux ordres menacent majoritairement cette construction européenne. La pression économico-politique, entendue comme pression extérieure, qui participe d'une économie mondialisée à laquelle l'Europe, en raison de ses choix en partie de se soumettre au libéralisme, notamment sur les questions de dénationalisation de son économie, au profit d'une pratique du libre-échange dénuée de l'intervention de l'État. En ce cas, les peuples européens en appellent au protectionnisme, à la fermeture des frontières et au rejet de l'autre comme facteur de déstabilisation.
So what is threatening our European construct are two things. The first is economical and political pressure that is understood as an external pressure that is participating in a globalized economy to which Europe is right to choose to give itself over to liberalism, especially on questions of denationalization of its economy in order for a practice of free exchange, freed from state intervention, in order for that to work. In this case, peoples in Europe are calling for protectionism. They're calling for the closing of the borders, and they are calling for and engaging in a rejection of the other as a factor of destabilization.
Je rajoute une phrase. Avec ce libéralisme, c'est la perte des acquis sociaux qui apparaît. Je te laisse le dire.
With this liberalism, we're losing our social gains.
L'autre réalité,
The other reality,
l'autre menace,
the other threat,
mais qui en est une que pour certains Européens,
but which is only one for some Europeans,
c'est la crise environnementale, les 5 siècles de colonisation et de prédation territoriale qui ont mené la Terre à sa fin aujourd'hui. Je répète, l'autre réalité, l'autre menace, mais qui en est une pour certains Européens, c'est la crise environnementale, les 5 siècles de colonisation et de prédation territoriale qui ont mené la Terre à sa fin aujourd'hui.
the other reality, the other threat, but is one only for certain Europeans, is the environmental crisis. The 5 centuries of colonization and predation of territory that have led the Earth to its end, are leading it to its end today.
L'horreur coloniale, celle qui a accompagné l'époque que les historiens nomment l'époque moderne, nous en payons le prix très fortement aujourd'hui.
The colonial horror that has accompanied the period that historians call the modern period is one that has cost us dearly, and we are paying a high price today.
Petite digression, when I said this horror, it's not about the human people, it's about also the environment. Voilà. Quand je dis l'horreur coloniale, c'est au sujet aussi des questions environnementales.
Mm-hmm. So the colonial horror is tied up in the environment as well.
En France, l'historienne américaine Caroline Ford a publié en 2018 un ouvrage intitulé « Naissance de l'écologie, polémique française sur l'environnement, 1800-1930 ».
In France, the American historian Caroline Ford published in 2018 a work titled The Birth of Ecology, French Controversies on the Environment from 1800 to 1930.
J'étais très curieuse de cet ouvrage.
I was very curious about this work.
J'avais travaillé durant 5 ans sur la colonisation française en Algérie.
I had worked for 5 years on French colonization in Algeria.
Et je m'étais intéressée aux questions écologiques.
And I was interested in ecological questions.
Je préparais à ce moment une grande exposition sur la cartographie.
And I was preparing at this time a huge exposition on cartography.
Et j'apprenais combien le territoire de l'Algérie avait servi de lieu expérimental quant à la question du territoire, de sa représentation et de sa captation.
And I was learning to what extent territory in Algeria had served as an experimental space for the question of territory and its representation and captation.
Faire une carte de l'Afrique au XIXe siècle, c'est capter le territoire.
To make a map of Africa in the 19th century is to capture that territory.
C'est recouvrir l'existant
It is to cover what is existing
et poser sur l'existant une autre réalité.
and to pose on what exists there another reality.
Caroline Ford a omis une chose.
Caroline Ford omitted something.
Elle écrit sur la naissance de l'écologie française,
She writes on the birth of French ecology,
sur les lois de protection que la France décide de mettre en place autour des années 1852 et suivantes, suite au ravage de la déforestation dans les zones de l'Est de la France. Zone de l'Est du Nord aussi, sorry.
She is writing on the laws of protection that France decided to put in place around 1852 and the following years, following the ravaging, the deforestation of the zones of the east and north of France.
Notamment l'arrachage des forêts des Vosges et du Jura pour le commerce fluvial et la construction des bateaux.
And she was focused specifically on the forests that were uprooted in the Vosges and in the Jura mountains for river commerce and the construction of boats.
Les pluies torrentielles dans ces zones de montagne arasées, devenues arides et sans végétation, feront des centaines de morts.
The torrential rains in these zones of mountain that became very dry and completely devoid of vegetation would lead to hundreds of deaths.
Mais la France a besoin de bois droit pour la construction de ses navires et le développement de son commerce.
But France needs woods and its rights, the wood, to construct its naval empire, in a sense, and develop its commerce.
Oui, parce que le commerce va être dans la deuxième partie du 19e siècle. C'est une folie. C'est le grand capitalisme à ce moment-là.
The second half of the 19th century was one of great commerce and capitalism.
Les forêts de pins, bois nécessaires à la construction des navires aussi, doivent être restaurées.
Pine wood, which is necessary to the construction of boats, must be restored.
Il n'y a plus d'arbres et les ravages des inondations mettent à mal ce capitalisme fleurissant.
So there are no more trees at this time, and the flooding destroys this capitalism that's beginning.
L'État français, le gouvernement de Napoléon III, va devoir trouver des solutions pour ne pas renoncer au commerce exponentiel qu'offrent les denrées des colonies et qui ne peuvent s'effectuer que par bateau.
The French government, under Napoleon III, has to find solutions then to not give up on this wonderful commerce that's just exploding thanks to the goods from the colonies, and this can only be transported by boat.
Et accessoirement, il faut protéger les populations des inondations torrentielles, car il n'y a plus d'arbres.
And since there are no more trees, they must also protect the population from these horrible, horrible downpours and floodings.
Les Vosges et le Jura sont des montagnes chauves, il n'y a plus d'arbres.
So the Vosges and the Jura are mountains that have become bald. There are no more trees.
Et les pierres s'effondrent dans les torrents.
And rocks and boulders just get taken away by the torrential.
Les arbres ne retiennent plus la terre et la roche.
The trees no longer hold the earth and the rocks.
La mise en place de ces premières lois environnementales, dont parle Caroline Ford, voulues par la monarchie française de l'époque, ne sont compréhensibles que si l'on tente de pratiquer un contre-champ.
So the putting into place of these first environmental laws that were wanted, needed by the French monarchy of the time are only understandable, only comprehensible if we try to practice a contre-champ, another point of view.
Comment une telle effervescence économique et capitaliste puisse engager le gouvernement de Napoléon III vers des lois de protection de la nature et pourquoi pas de régénération des forêts?
So how can such an economic and capitalist effervescence lead the government of Napoleon III to engage in creating laws that protect nature? And why not regenerate the forests?
Au moment où ces lois se mettent en place, la France est en Algérie depuis 1830.
So at the time that these laws are put into place, France has been in Algeria since 1830.
En 1865, on pourra déplorer que dans ce pays, l'Algérie, sur 1500 km de côte, plus aucun arbre ne subsistera.
In 1865, we can deplore the fact that in this country, Algeria, over 1,500 kilometers of coast, not a single tree subsists,
À l'exception des oliviers,
with the exception of olive trees.
et puis de ce qu'on va implanter aussi, je ne l'ai pas mis, hein, mais c'est... bon, j'ai oublié le terme. Je dis ça parce que j'ai les rapports que vous trouvez sur Internet, sur Gallica. Hein, il suffit de mettre forêt Algérie 1850, et vous avez tous les rapports sur la destruction de la forêt. Merci Google. Sorry, you know,
Yes.
there are a lot of documentation, and also I was surprised because this documentation now is in the American Library, and it's you know, you have libre access for the, and I was surprised, you know, because it's amazing for the population in this part. Et c'est pas fini, but it's not finished. OK. En 1865, on pourra déplorer que dans ce pays, l'Algérie, sur 1500 km de côte, plus aucun arbre ne résistera, à l'exception des oliviers. J'ai oublié le reste. Et le liège qu'on va importer aussi. Sorry. Voilà. Voilà, je te laisse le dire. À
Le
l'exception
liège.
Ah oui, comment on dit le liège en... How is it, liège en anglais?
Liège, anybody know liège?
Liège.
I'm not great in
Non, on fait ça pour les
trees.
bouchons.
Cork. Thank you.
Thanks. Face à ce désastre, du moins face à ce que je nomme moi un désastre, la France ajoutera à l'Algérie un autre fléau écologique.
Faced with this disaster, or what at least I call a disaster, France will add another ecological river.
Ce fléau écologique français, il sera mis en place dans toutes les colonies d'Afrique française.
This ecological disease that is French, it will be put into place in all French colonies in Africa.
Avant ce fléau dont je vais parler, et qui concerne l'eucalyptus, il faut rappeler qu'en Afrique, presque tous les bois dits exotiques seront coupés, arrachés et non régénérés.
Before this, I will remind that in Africa, almost all woods called exotic will be cut, pulled out, and not regenerated.
En France, les trois plus grandes fortunes françaises se sont d'abord enrichies dans la découpe et le transport du bois d'Afrique au XIXe siècle.
In France, the three greatest French fortunes are first made in cutting and transporting the woods of Africa.
La famille de Vincent Bolloré,
The family of Vincent Bolloré,
celle de Bernard Arnault
that of Bernard Arnault,
ou Christian Dior, maintenant,
or Christian Dior,
now,
now,
celle de François Pinault,
and that of François Pinault,
Gucci now.
Gucci.
Elles ont toutes d'abord fait fortune dans l'exploitation et l'exportation des bois d'Afrique.
First made their fortune in the exploitation and exportation of wood from Africa.
Cet arrachage des arbres souvent centenaires est utile au sol à vider le continent africain de sa sève souterraine.
Pulling up these trees that were centuries old, of course, and useful to the soil, emptied the African continent of what it needed underneath.
En échange, la France y a implanté des eucalyptus.
In exchange, France planted eucalyptus trees.
Ce bois pousse très vite.
This is a tree that grows very quickly.
Il est excellent pour faire des cagettes.
Comment
on dit cagettes? Tu sais quand tu mets, well, I said that in English, you know, when you, for the fruits and the box in wood. Comment on dit? This term is difficult in English. When you buy a lot of fruit in the wood box, what's the name of the box?
Plywood?
OK.
Yeah.
Tu peux dire ça. C'est excellent pour faire. Répète des...
It's excellent for plywood.
Seulement ce bois, l'eucalyptus, à l'origine, il vient de Tasmanie.
This wood of eucalyptus originally comes from Tasmania.
Puis, il a été implanté en Amérique latine à la fin du XVIIIe siècle.
And at the end of the 18th century, it was implanted in Latin America.
La Tasmanie, vous le savez, est une île au sud-est de l'Australie.
Tasmania, as you know, is an island to the southeast of Australia.
Ce bois pousse très vite.
As we said, this wood grows very quickly.
Les arbres peuvent être très très hauts,
They can go very, very high, the trees.
du moins en Tasmanie.
At least in Tasmania.
Ils poussent très vite car ils consomment beaucoup d'eau.
It grows very quickly, this tree, because it consumes a great deal of water.
Et il se reproduit aussi rapidement.
And it reproduces very quickly as well,
Du moins s'il y a de l'eau.
at least if there's water.
Et la Tasmanie est très humide.
And Tasmania is very humid.
Mais l'eucalyptus, il peut aller chercher cette eau très en profondeur.
But the eucalyptus can also dig very deep to find water.
En Algérie, au Maroc et dans toute l'Afrique de l'Ouest, la France a planté cet arbre.
In Algeria, in Morocco, and all throughout Western Africa, France planted this tree.
Cet arbre a littéralement bu toutes les nappes du Maroc et de l'Algérie aujourd'hui.
And this tree has literally drunk all the water of Morocco and Algeria.
Et aujourd'hui, la crise de l'eau qui sévit dans tout le continent africain a rendu la terre pauvre.
And today, the crisis of water that is afflicting the entire continent of Africa has made the earth very, very poor.
Les hommes partent.
People are leaving.
Ils doivent partir.
They have to leave.
La seule solution serait de régénérer les sols.
The only solution would be to regenerate the soil.
Et pour cela, il faut, en ce cas maintenant, mettre en pratique des lois de protection de la nature.
And in order to do this, it is necessary now to put into practice laws that protect nature.
Ne plus voler l'Afrique.
No longer steal from Africa.
Je vous remercie.
I thank you.
Des questions?
I hope you will feel free to pose questions, interact with Zahia, who can probably do some in English, but we can, see how it goes
so
because,
nice.
of course, bilingual is fine. Yes, here.
Me gustaría agradecer a Zahia por el gesto, the gesture of speaking in French, because how can you imagine Europe from its or the peripheries without the linguistic multitude that is necessary to reimagining Europe? So thank you so much. It was great. Muchas gracias.
Thanks very much. I was very proud when the European Union, proposed the protection of the minority language, and now we have a law for the minority language, and also, for example, the Russian language inside the European country is protected too, dans les pays baltes. Le russe est protégé par l'Union européenne too. Yes, yes. It was the Catalan and the other language, yes. Thanks very much.
We had a question up here.
Sorry. Merci beaucoup, t'es adorable, franchement, sorry.
Hi, thank you very much. As I listened to your talk, I was reminded of a phrase that I've often thought about from a historian who said, we need a history that begins from somewhere else. And I thought the way in which you spoke to that was superb.
We need history.
A history.
Une histoire.
That commence d'autre.
Ailleurs.
Ailleurs, oui.
Ailleurs. No, the idea is, with Derrida, the idea was, the Europe is a project and term. It's a term and project. But you when I said ailleurs, I think, really, I don't know why, all the people, are very interesting just by the Europe. But we can build other European system with the European utopia, you can say that also, or European project, in a lot of parts of the world, We need that.
But, thank you. But I also had a comment about Kagame.
Yeah.
Because coming from the UK,
Yeah.
As you will know, Rwanda is very much in the news.
I was surprised when the UK proposed and Kagame said that.
Yeah.
But with Kagame, regularly, we are very surprised.
Right.
You know,
Well.
because I was surprised when Kagame proposed, you know, the new, he was very involved in this idea of and a lot of African writers, some friend, you know, was very surprised and very, very interesting by this idea, you know, the new, les nouveaux États-Unis d'Afrique, you know, the idea of there are no boundaries in Africa and they built common project with also the background of the Africa and the culture of the Africa. And this man, yes, I know the relation with the, but don't forget something, you know. Kagame, he was the enemy of the French government. And I know I don't read something very positive of this man, but the French government was really involved against, you know, this new power in Rwanda. Donc moi, voilà, I don't hate this man, you know. I don't know who is this man, but for me, you know, when the French politics said something against Kagame, for me the project sometimes is, you know. But when I read some projects from Africa and I read the project of Kagame, Les Nouveaux États d'Europe d'Afrique, I was interested by that. Yes, because it's very hard for the young people in Africa, you know, because all the young people in Africa, they don't receive the visa. You need visa for the travel, you know. It was not the same before. And all the people was very free before the Algerian terrorism. It was very easy for the African people. The travel was very easy. And during the terrorism in Algeria, the French and the European also proposed the visa for the African people. Sorry.
I wanted to continue on the story of wood because it's very interesting in this country too. So many different insects have come in the wood, and now our forests are dying as a result of importation. So we're losing all of our hemlocks, we're losing all of our ash trees, we lost all of our elms. And so that's another aspect of taking too much from where you shouldn't take it without thinking about the consequences or knowing what the consequences might be.
Thanks. C'est pas une question.
Juste un commentaire.
If you lose forest and wood, we will dead. We need the forest, we need wood.
I may draw on Alison's wonderful skill
Yeah,
at on-the-spot translation. You were magnificent,
Very
Alison.
clear.
So she really was. I wanted to ask you, you have sketched a wonderfully inspiring and optimistic view, especially dealing with young people and the promise of freer movement of ideas and freer movement of people. One of the forces, unfortunately, that is countering that is nationalism. And within the United States, this, I'll just say, obsession with states' rights, that every state has to decide every single thing, including civil rights. Could you talk about how you see this counterforce of nationalism fitting in with this more inspirational model of freer movement?
You know, it's hard because I'm politics. Perhaps I have not a lot of hope, but I need hope. You know, I'm politics, you know, and for me, now it's true, I was very surprised by this big meeting in Bangladesh, in Dhaka, and it's the same in Africa. But the problem is, in this country, for example, it's not this kind of meeting is not possible because we need visa for that, okay? And regularly, my idea is now the new conflict, it's between the young people and the old people. It's my perception today. Because when you are young today, you know, it's the boundaries, c'est pas possible. it's not possible with the internet, with the other, you know, why you need boundaries? We don't need, you know. And I'm very surprised by how, for example, my nephew and niece, you know, are involved in another world, because with internet on the other, they play with the people in Hong Kong by internet. You know, all these people are connected now. It's another world. It's, you know, the boundary exists, but perhaps you can decide all this is factice. Je ne sais pas si je l'ai bien dit. C'est une décision. You know, you can decide it tomorrow, you know. All this is factice.
It's all fabricated.
Yes, because with internet, you can connect a lot of projects with the other people. And I know move is difficult. Travel the country is difficult. But it's very strange for me, because sometimes I'm surprised by the possibility of the young people in Dakar. It was wonderful, because sometimes I say, why you sleep? How you travel from the Rwanda until there? How you travel in Africa between, you know, and all these people was very happy by the idea of the meeting, the idea of the relation. C'est magnifique. Sorry. And it's true, you know, in Africa specifically, I was very surprised by the life of the young people. You know, I'm surprised because les corps sont libres. You know, the body is free. And all Europe built, you know, something against this body. But this body, sorry. Pardon, sorry.
Thank you very much. This was really enlightening. I was wondering if we could speak a little more about institutional possibilities or maybe institutional limits, because it seems to me that we're talking about wonderful collaborations, right, from which Europe is excluding itself pretty much, the Dakar one and the Dakar one, right? And I'm thinking also of the Union for the Mediterranean, Union de la Méditerranée, which was this big project, right, under Sarkozy that was supposed to do a number of things, and which in the end was a way to sideline some countries from joining the European Union, right? So it had a kind of cynical aspect to it as well. So I'm wondering to what extent, you know, European institutions are a facilitator or maybe an impediment to this kind of collaboration that you have in mind, that you're talking about.
Depend if it's for the factories. It's for the factory. I think it will be more easy. It's, you know, because with the factory, it's very easy to connect country with the other country, because now a lot of people, you know, for example, in Morocco, in this country, there are a lot of new schools for trade on the other, and I think Morocco will be a platform for a new way in Africa, I'm sure. And I love this country too. Sorry, but the problem is the hope. And in Europe, it's very strange, but the crisis is there. But it's not a material crisis. We need a project. And the young people need another utopia. And we have not that in Europe. That's why it's difficult, because we have the right party, and the young people, you know, need other things. But it's a balance, you know. You know, I don't know at the end who will be the winner, but I was very. Remember, for example, the Arab Revolution, you know? It's hard because look in the Egypt, and the promise was not there. But a lot of people in the world know this hope now. Pardon, hein, c'est pas tout à fait la réponse, mais...
Thank you. I wanted to say first, I'm a big fan of Muslima novel, so it's a great honor to have you here.
Thanks.
Well, I wanted to first make a comment which made me think of what you were saying. One of the emergent agricultures in Morocco is a watermelon agriculture, which is oasis agriculture. And it's specifically attuned because phenologically, that is, when it comes into fruition, is
Where in tune? What you said?
phenology, like when it flowers, when
Yeah.
it becomes a fruit. It's earlier than in Europe. So Europe has been outsourcing a lot of its watermelon and melon production to Morocco, and it's actually taking away the oasis water, which is specifically for rural communities or communities just in the Atlas Mountains. So it's to your point, how Europe has been outsourcing its agriculture in order to preserve its own space has meant water-intensive crops in oases. So there are a number of scholars doing this work, and it's fascinating to see how that's making people leave too. Their homes are being destroyed. Their oases are being sucked dry by literally the Aldi market, which is a terrifying thing.
Thanks.
But
you know, in
yeah.
Europe, in Morocco, I'm very involved in the project with a very good friend. His name is Hassan Darsi. He's an artist, and if you use this term Hassan Darsi in the internet, but Hassan Darsi is an artist, but he has another project, and the project is not Hassan Darsi project, not so far from the Ben Sliman forest. I was really involved in this project for protect the forest, and also how you can help the population with a new agriculture. And it's amazing now, because in this part of the land, all was a desert, and now there are a lot of vegetable. Because you know why? After the colonization, and you can say it's, I don't want some, you know, when I said colonization, the problem is not the population, it's the economic project, you know. In Morocco, all was a production for the exportation. And I was surprised, for example, because nobody knows the past of the land. I was really involved in the archive and in a different book, and a lot of people write a lot of things about how was the landscape in Morocco in the 18th century. And I was in the desert, I have the book, and in this book, I read it was a great vegetation, and I said, why? You understand? And with Hassan Darsi, the project was, okay, here's a desert, perhaps step by step, one term, another, and the project is there. Now, it's a school, you know. It's possible, but we need the resources. And you know where you find the book? In Europe, you know. All the indexation is in there. That's why I had gesture for that. We need free access of all this documentation for the population in Africa. Sorry.
Yeah, well, that's a great point. I mean, all the human history of agriculture is the human history of deserts and their rivers. The second question I had was actually, you were saying that peripheralization is often accompanied by emptying.
Peripheralization?
Peripheralization is accompanied by emptying, or you said a cartography of putting one face on top of what's there already. And I was reminded of the recent controversy with the radioactive dust from Ecker and Regane flowing back into France.
Yeah.
So after the nuclear tests, so one of the big controversies is that France did its atmospheric, that is its ground tests for nuclear weapons in populated areas that they said had nobody there. It's a desert, it's a mountain. So the way that Europe even exported or peripheralized its nuclear experiments has been really remarkable, how it's been coming back. We've been seeing this. There's new scholarship on this. But since the 1960s, people have been pretending like there was nobody there. Nobody could have been hurt, possibly. But, you know, the filmmaker Elisabeth Louvray has this really great documentary, Atom, where she's thinking about and interviewing the people who lived through this test, who were directly below it. So just thinking about how that accompanies the story of the wood in the 19th century is, I just wanted to really thank you for that. So, thank you.
I think the French government one day pay for that, you know, but it's difficult. how it was the same in the not so far from Australia, you know, in the nuclear French essay. On est des fous. You are very crazy, you know. Sorry. Okay. Pardon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And thank you, Alison, for the
merci.
heroic translation.
C'est adorable.
You've all been very gracious. Thank you.
She knows, she knows very well my book, that's why she's a good friend, and thanks.
Yeah, no, we are very fond of Alison. But my question goes to you, if I may. It's very simple. You talked about the young people and the role of hope.
Yeah.
And you said Europe needs a project.
Yeah.
I fully agree.
Yeah.
What is the role of universities in helping with the hope and this utopian project?
I think in my country, the university is dead. Sorry, yes. Not because you have a big problem with the idea of the great school and the university. Polytechnic, You know, where is the revolution? This revolution don't exist, you know, because it's always the same part of the population receive the great education, and this education is not private. You know, it's you pay, you know, École Normale, you know, Polytechnic on the other is you receive the best, and it's very strange, you know. It's not my avis, you know. All the people know that. Who is in Polytechnic school? École Normale on the other, the bourgeoisie. You know, that's why I said that. And look, you know, one beautiful campus, a good university sorry, a very good teacher. It's true but no, and during the COVID, lots of young people go outside. The project now is not in the university in my country. The project is in the countryside. A lot of people are with higher education, you know, after one master's degree and move in I don't know why, but there are a lot of projects in the countryside. The idea is you can build another society with knowledge, and the knowledge, you know, you find the knowledge another part, you know, it's not, we don't need, university for that. Depend what you want. But I respect a lot also. I know in the United States you pay and the other. When I said something when I said I love the American university, it's very expensive. But look, you know, the respect of the student, the quality of you know, it's a specific moment in your life, you know. Now, it's very strong because ça s'est cassé la gueule en France. It's very hard for the young people, you know. If your family have not money, and you know, because with one master degree in economy, je sais pas ce qu'on peut faire en France. You can be a teacher, okay, but and we have also this. It's very hard because after the bachelor, now we have class prépa. It's a new way, you know. All the young people, je sais pas pourquoi. It's very hard for young people, you know. And at the end, you have not money because the salary is not good. That's why it's better if you, I don't know. I love the young people. I have a very good discussion with all these people, and for me, the level is good. Behind, I don't know, but there are another project. Ça, j'en suis sûr. Because you can learn a lot with teacher, yes, but with book, with internet, with the other thing, with connection. But there are a lot of also community projects. Voilà. Look now with the strike against the new law for the retirement. Have you seen? A lot of young people now are involved against this law, not because he wants another project